My younger brother used my house for his engagement party, but that wasn't even the worst part of it all. I'm Vanessa, I'm 30, and I'm a fund manager in Knoxville, Tennessee. It took years of late nights and high-stakes deals for me to finally be able to buy my dream home. A place that just screams success, you know? It's all mine. Every single square inch of it was earned by me. So when my brother managed to sweet-talk me into letting him use it for his big engagement party, I figured I was just doing the family a solid. I made sure to lay down some really strict rules, because I thought that would keep everything in check. Boy, was I wrong about that. The day after his over-the-top party, he shows up with a moving truck, like some big, hulking symbol of his betrayal and his audacious plan to try and steal my house right out from under me. He just stared me down and said, "This house is mine now." I didn't even yell or blink. I just stood there with my arms crossed and a smirk on my face because my lawyer and friend was already waiting for them at the door. How did my own family end up turning on me like this? It's a completely wild ride full of lies, crazy schemes, and a fight that I never even saw coming. You gotta stick around, because you are not going to believe how I managed to shut it all down. Hey friends, if you've got a crazy family story of your own, make sure you drop it down in the comments, and don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It's what keeps this channel alive and kicking. So let me take you all back to the beginning, back to how this whole crazy mess even started. I'm a fund manager out here in Knoxville, Tennessee. I've been grinding for years, working late nights, making cutthroat deals, just outsmarting the market, all to build a life that I can actually be proud of. 2 years ago, I bought my dream home, a modern villa, and every single brick in that place was earned with my own blood, sweat, and tears. It's my sanctuary, it's proof that I finally made it. But to my family, it was just a shiny new prize that they thought they could just come along and try to claim for themselves. My younger brother, Justin, is 27, and he's a freelancer who has never really managed to land on his feet. It's just one failed gig after another with him, and he's always being propped up by our parents. His girlfriend, Tiffany, is 26, and she has a charm to her that just feels totally rehearsed, you know? All smiles, but there's just no substance there. Our mom, Susan, treats Justin like he's completely untouchable, like he can do no wrong. "He's just finding his way," she'd always say, while she waves off his latest screw-up. Our dad, Carl, always stays quiet, and he's always dodging conflict whenever he can. It was early spring when Susan called me up. "Vanessa, honey, we need to use your house," she said. Her tone was a weird mix of warmth and also guilt. She wanted to use my villa for Justin and Tiffany's engagement party, which was supposed to be a charity event designed to make them both look good. I wasn't exactly thrilled about the idea. My home isn't some kind of rental space for them to use, but Susan kept pressing me hard. "It's for family," she insisted. "You've done so well for yourself, you should share a little bit." Carl chimed in and said, "It would mean a lot to your brother." The pressure felt like a vice that was just tightening and tightening around me. I finally gave in, but only with some really strict rules attached to it. 100 guests max, I told them. And it has to be done by 10 o'clock at night, and absolutely no changes to my house. Susan agreed to it all, and way too quickly if you ask me. That should have been my first warning sign. Justin called me up later, and he was laying on the charm real thick. "Sis, you're a lifesaver," he said, and his voice just sounded way too smooth. Tiffany sent me a text saying, "This is going to be epic." Epic for who, is what I was wondering. The next few weeks were just a flood of messages coming at me. Tiffany was pushing to extend the party past midnight, and she was claiming that it would help to boost the charity vibe. She also wanted to hold a live auction during the event, which would mean extra setup and more time. I just shut it all down. 10 o'clock, no exceptions, I replied. Justin promised that they would stick to the plan, but his promises were always so flimsy, you know? Susan's calls started to get sharper and sharper. "Why can't you just be a little bit flexible?" she snapped. "It's just one night. One night in my house, which I had earned all on my own." While Justin was coasting through life, I confided in my friend Edward, a lawyer who's 40, and he's had my back for years now. Over coffee, he leaned forward and he looked me right in the eyes and said, "They're testing your boundaries. You need to get a contract in writing." I really wanted to believe that my family wouldn't screw me over like that, but his words really stuck with me. Susan's favoritism towards Justin wasn't anything new. Growing up, Justin always got new gear while I was scraping by just to get by. He crashed Dad's car, No big deal. I missed a deadline? Lectures for weeks. I had built my whole life away from all of their drama, but letting them use my house felt like I was just inviting it all right back into my life. As the party date was getting closer and closer, my unease just kept growing. Tiffany kept texting me about small tweaks that she wanted to make, like adding more chairs or setting up a bigger stage for the auction. Justin just brushed off all of my concerns. "Chill, sis. It's all under control," he said, and his tone was just way too casual. Susan was calling me every single day, asking about my house's layout like she was trying to map it all out. Why did she even care so much? My gut was churning. I started saving every single text and every email, just in case. Edward noticed how tense I was. "You're too smart to let this slide," he said in a really firm voice. "You need to lock down that contract ASAP." I nodded, but I really wasn't prepared for just how far all of this was going to go. My villa was my pride and joy, and it was proof that I didn't need anyone's handouts. There was just no way that I was going to let my family, or anyone else for that matter, mess with that. The warning signs were really starting to pile up fast. I had laid down some really clear rules for my brother's engagement party. 100 guests, done by 10 o'clock, and absolutely no changes to my house. But Justin and Tiffany obviously had their own agenda. The caterer called me up and they sounded completely rattled, saying that they had been told to prepare for 150 guests. 50 extra people. That wasn't just a simple mistake. It was completely intentional. Then Tiffany emailed me, all cheery, and asked if she could revamp my backyard with a pergola and some new landscaping for the event. My patience was really starting to wear thin. They were pushing my limits and acting like all of my rules were just mere suggestions. I called Justin up that evening. "Why are there 50 extra guests?" I asked him, and my voice was calm but firm. He chuckled like it was nothing. "Sis, it's just a few more people. Just relax." Relax? This was my home, and these were my boundaries. I reminded him about our agreement, but he completely dodged the question. "It's all good," he said, and his tone was really slippery. Tiffany texted me soon after. "Vanessa, we're just trying to make it special." Special for who, I thought. The next morning, my colleague Barbara, who is 35, pulled me aside at work. She had overheard something really troubling from one of the party suppliers. Tiffany had been bragging about using my house long-term after the event. Long-term? My heart just sank. Barbara is all about no nonsense. She doesn't exaggerate things. "Watch your back," she said, and her eyes were serious. That sounds like a whole lot more than just a simple party. I decided that I was going to confront Justin face to face. I drove over to our parents' house, where he was sprawled out on the couch, looking all smug. "Justin, we agreed on 100 guests," I said, standing tall. "And no changes to the backyard. What's all of this about?" He just shrugged and grinned. "You're blowing this way out of proportion, sis. It's just a party." Tiffany, who was perched nearby, nodded in agreement. "We're doing this for charity, Vanessa. Just chill out." Her smile looked forced, like a mask that was just barely slipping. Before I could even press him any harder, our mom, Susan, stepped in. "Vanessa, why do you always have to be so difficult?" she snapped, and her voice was just heavy with judgment. "Family helps family. You've got that big house. Let your brother shine for once." Her words really cut deep, and they painted me as the villain for trying to protect what I had rightfully earned. Our dad, Carl, tried to play mediator. "Let's all just take a breath," he said, but his neutrality just left me feeling like I was being cornered. I stood my ground. "The rules aren't changing," I said, and my voice was steady. 100 guests, no landscaping, and it's all done by 10 o'clock. Justin just rolled his eyes and muttered something about me being uptight. Tiffany just pouted like I had completely ruined all of their plans. Susan sighed, all exasperated. "You're so successful, Vanessa. Why can't you just share a little bit?" I had already opened up my home for their event. What else could they even possibly expect from me at this point? Susan called me up later, and she was piling on the guilt real thick. "You're embarrassing your brother," she said, and her tone was really sharp. "This is his moment." I clenched my jaw because I was so tired of her constant bias. Justin had always been the golden child, always skipping responsibilities, always wasting money, and always getting second chances. I had built my whole life from the ground up while he was always just leaning on handouts. And now, they were treating my home like it was just his own personal stage. I started saving all of their messages. Tiffany's pushy texts, Justin's vague replies. Barbara's warning about long-term use just kept echoing in my head. Were they just being reckless? Or was this something a whole lot bigger? I really wasn't sure, but I knew that I wasn't going to take any risks. I double-checked my security system, and I made sure that all of my locks were really tight. With the party only a month away, their demands just kept on coming. Tiffany was pushing for a brand new sound system so that she could really set the mood. Justin asked if he could borrow my patio furniture so that he could have some extra seating. And each and every request just tested my resolve a little bit more and more. Susan's guilt trips were getting heavier and heavier. "Your brother is really struggling," she said during one of her calls. Struggling? I had earned every single inch of my home. What was Justin's excuse for anything? I refused to budge. My house was my boundary, and it was my hard-won victory. But the more that I pushed back, the more alone I felt. Susan's lectures, Justin's smirks, Tiffany's fake charm. It was all building up and building up. I knew that I had to stay vigilant, because something was telling me that this was really only just the start of it all. One Sunday at my parents' house, everything just shifted. I had gone over for a family lunch, and I was expecting the usual small talk and Susan's subtle jabs about how selfish I was being. But what I overheard that day completely turned my whole world upside down. My cousin Tracy, who is 33, pulled me aside after we had dessert. Her face was tense, and her voice was really low. "We need to talk," she said, and she glanced over towards the living room, where Justin, Tiffany, and Tiffany's brother, Trevor, who is 29, were all laughing with Susan. Tracy led me out to the porch, so that we could be completely out of earshot. "I overheard something last night," she whispered. "Justin, Tiffany, and Trevor were talking at a bar. They're planning something really big, and it's about your house." My stomach just dropped. She went on, and her words were careful, but urgent. "They mentioned forging documents so that they could claim that your villa is legally theirs." Trevor was all in on the idea, and he was saying that he'd handle the paperwork, because he's done it before. Forging documents to steal my house? I felt like I had just been punched right in the gut. Tracy wasn't finished yet. "There's more," she said, hesitating. "Tiffany kept talking about being pregnant, and she was saying that it would seal the deal with your family, but I really don't buy it. She was drinking really heavily, like 3 cocktails with no hesitation at all. I really think that she's lying to try and guilt you into doing something." My head was spinning. Tiffany pregnant? It just didn't add up at all, but it really fit with her playbook: manipulate, charm, and control. I pressed Tracy for more details. She had been at the bar with some friends when she spotted them in a corner booth, and they were completely oblivious to the fact that she was even there. Justin had been all cocky, and he was saying, "Once we pull this off, the house is going to be all ours." Tiffany giggled and added, "Vanessa won't even know what hit her." Trevor, all business, said that they'd use family pressure to try and make it all look legit. Tracy's voice was shaking as she was recounting all of this to me. "I just couldn't believe that they would even go this far," she said. "Your own family." I just stood there, frozen, and my mind was racing. My brother, the one who I'd been bailing out of messes since we were kids, was plotting to steal my home, the villa that I had poured my entire life into. And Tiffany, with her fake smiles, was playing dirty and faking a pregnancy. It was a complete betrayal that I just hadn't seen coming. Susan's favoritism flashed through my mind, all those years of Justin getting a free pass. Was she even in on all of this too? I glanced inside. Justin was joking around with Carl, all carefree as ever. Tiffany caught my eye and flashed that way too sweet smile of hers. Trevor was just sitting there, quiet but smug, sipping on his drink. I really wanted to storm right in there and confront them all, but Tracy grabbed my arm. "Don't," she warned me. "They'll just deny everything. You need to have some proof." She was absolutely right. I needed to be smart about this, and not emotional. Back inside, Susan pulled me into the kitchen. "You're so quiet today," she said, and her tone was really probing. "Is everything okay?" I forced a nod, and my heart was pounding. I just couldn't tip them off to the fact that I knew what they were up to. Carl joined us, sensing that there was some tension in the air. "Are you two good?" he asked, doing his usual peacemaker routine. I mumbled something vague because my mind was just elsewhere. All I could think about was their plan to forge papers and fake a pregnancy. My house was right in their crosshairs. Driving home, I replayed Tracy's words over and over in my head. Her honesty wasn't a surprise at all. She had always been straight with me, and she was the one family member who didn't play favorites. But Justin, I had given him so much money for rent, and I had given him so many job leads. And now he wanted to use my house for his party. And Tiffany, her charity event, was starting to feel like it was just a cover for something else. Trevor's involvement just made everything even worse. He was a total stranger in my family's drama, and he was scheming against me. I just couldn't shake the shock that I was feeling. My house wasn't just some building. It was proof that I had finally made it. Despite Susan's constant bias, and despite Justin's free rides, the idea of them stealing it just felt like a knife that was being twisted in my back. But anger was also starting to creep in too. They thought that I would just roll over and let them do this to me. They really didn't know me at all. I started piecing everything together. Tiffany's pushiness, Justin's dodgy answers, and Susan's constant guilt trips. They weren't just random things. They were building towards something a whole lot bigger. Tracy's warning was like a lifeline, but I needed more than just her word to go on. I checked my phone, and I started scrolling through all of their texts, looking for clues. I didn't find anything solid just yet, but I really wasn't going to let this go. My home was mine, and I was going to fight for it. I knew that I had to protect what was mine. Tracy's warning about Justin, Tiffany, and Trevor's plan to forge documents and try to claim my house just lit a fire right under me. I wasn't going to let my brother, or anyone else, take away what I had worked so hard to get. The next morning, I called my friend Edward, the lawyer whose no-nonsense attitude always cut right through all of the noise. "We need to meet," I said, and my voice was really tight. "It's urgent." Edward met me at a coffee shop, and his sharp eyes just scanned my face as I spilled everything. The forged papers, Tiffany's possible fake pregnancy, and Trevor's role in it all. He leaned back, with his arms crossed, and his jaw was set. "They're playing a really dangerous game," he said, and his tone was all business. "First, we need to lock down your defenses. You need to install security cameras all around your property, at every single angle, and they need to be high resolution. If they try anything at all, we'll have the evidence that we need." I nodded. His confidence was really steadying me. "Next," he added, "you need to get Justin to sign a contract. You need to make it crystal clear that he's only borrowing the house for one night. No claims, no extensions, nothing else." I really liked the plan. It was proactive, and it was airtight. Edward drafted up a contract that very day, just a single page, stating that the party was just a one-time event with absolutely no rights to my property whatsoever. I texted Justin to meet me, and I tried to keep it all casual. "Need to go over some of the party details," I wrote. He agreed, probably thinking that he could just charm his way through whatever it was. At my house, I slid the contract across the table. "Sign this," I said, and my voice was firm. "It just confirms our agreement, one night and no funny business." Justin's smile faltered, and his eyes narrowed. "What's all of this about, sis?" he asked, trying to play it all cool. "I'm just trying to protect my home," I replied, holding his gaze. He signed it, but the hesitation in his eyes just screamed guilt to me. Susan somehow got wind of it all, and she called me up that evening, and her voice was just dripping with judgment. "Vanessa, why are you making your brother sign papers?" she demanded. "You're always so selfish, and you're not thinking about the next generation at all." Her words cut like a blade, framing me as some heartless career woman who just didn't care about her family. The jab about the next generation really stung. I had built my whole life to secure my future, and not so that I could just hand it all over to Justin's schemes. "This is my home, Mom," I said, digging my heels in. "I'm protecting what's mine," she huffed, and accused me of tearing the family apart. "You've always been too independent," she said. The call ended when she hung up on me, and it left me seething with anger. I turned to our dad, Carl, who is 58, and I was hoping that he would be able to see reason. Over lunch, I explained the contract to him, and I told him all about my fears about Justin's plan. Carl rubbed his temples, and his usual peacemaker role was just crumbling right before my very eyes. "Can't you two just work all of this out?" he pleaded. "We're family." I shook my head. "Family doesn't plot to steal your home, Dad." He just sighed, and he was caught right there between us, and he was unable to bridge the gap. His failure to take a side just left me feeling even more alone. But it really hardened my resolve. I hired a security company that week, and they installed cameras at every entrance and all around the perimeter of my villa. The tech guy walked me through the whole system: motion sensors, night vision, and cloud backups. "No one's sneaking in here without you knowing," he assured me. It felt like I was just fortifying a castle, but I wasn't willing to take any chances. I also backed up all of my property documents, and I stored copies of them with Edward, and in a safe. If they wanted to play dirty, I was definitely going to be ready for them. Susan's pressure just didn't let up at all. She was texting me daily, and each message was heavier and heavier with guilt. "Your brother really needs your support," she wrote. "Why can't you think about his future for once?" His future? What about my future? I had clawed my way to the top while Justin was always leaning on her excuses. Her talk about the next generation just felt like a ploy to try and justify his greed. I stopped responding to her messages, and I started focusing instead on my own plan. Justin tried calling me, probably sensing that I was onto him. "Sis, why all the tension?" he asked, and his voice was all charm. I kept it short with him. "Just stick to the rules, Justin." His silence just spoke volumes to me. Tiffany even sent me a text too. It was all sweetness and light. "Can't wait for the party." I didn't reply. Their act just wasn't fooling me anymore. Edward checked in with me regularly, and his tone was always sharp and focused. "You're doing the right thing," he said during one of our calls. "You just need to stay one step ahead of them." His words really kept me grounded. I wasn't just fighting for my house. I was fighting for everything that I had built. The party was only weeks away, and I was preparing for the absolute worst. If Justin and Tiffany thought that they could just outsmart me, they were in for a really big surprise. The day of the engagement party had finally arrived. I had steeled myself, because I knew that my older brother Justin and Tiffany were up to no good. But their boldness still caught me completely off guard. My house was swarmed with way more people than the 100 guests that we had agreed on. I counted almost 150 people who were just mingling, sipping drinks, and clogging up my space. And then I saw the sound system, a massive, unapproved setup that was blasting music, replacing my approved speakers. They had blatantly violated the contract that Justin had signed. My pulse was racing, but I held my ground, and I just watched from the sidelines. Tracy, my cousin, slipped through the crowd and pulled me over to a secluded corner. "You need to hear all of this right now," she said, and her voice was low as she handed me her phone. She had recorded Tiffany and Trevor talking outside of my house that very morning. Tiffany's voice came through all smug and clear. "The pregnancy is completely fake," she said, laughing softly. "It's just so that we can mess with Vanessa's head," Trevor snorted. "Family pressure always breaks people like her." The words just hit me like a knife, confirming their manipulation. They weren't just breaking the rules. They were playing me for a total fool. I glanced across the party. Justin was charming all of the guests and acting like he actually owned my villa. Tiffany was gliding around, and her smile just looked so sharp and insincere. I pulled up my security cameras on my phone, and Edward's idea was really proving its worth, and I saw the caterers setting up extra tables that were completely unauthorized to handle the oversized crowd. This wasn't just a simple slip-up, it was a deliberate middle finger to my boundaries. The contract, my rules, and my trust were all just tossed aside. I caught Justin by the bar, away from any prying ears. "We set a limit of 100 guests," I said, and my tone was icy, and my sound system was already approved. "You broke the contract." He flashed a cocky grin, leaning against the counter. "Little sis, it's just a party. You really need to take it easy. Nobody's keeping score." His casual dismissal was pushing me right to the very edge. "And Tiffany's fake pregnancy," I said, holding up Tracy's phone. "She admitted that it's a lie so that she can try to manipulate me." "What's your angle in all of this, Justin?" His grin wavered for just a second, but he brushed it off. "You're blowing this all out of proportion," he said, chuckling. "It's just a simple mix-up." "A simple mix-up?" My fists clenched, but I kept my voice level. "You invited 50 extra people, swapped out my sound system, and Tiffany's lying just so that she can try to control me," I said, stepping closer to him. "This all stops right now." Justin just shrugged, deflecting all of the blame. "You really need to talk to Tiffany about all of this. She's just excited, that's all." His nonchalance was making my skin crawl. I really wanted to call him out even louder, but I knew that they would just spin any kind of outburst so that they could make me look completely unhinged. Susan just swooped in, and her expression was a mix of worry and also reproach. "Vanessa, you're spoiling their whole night," she said, pulling me aside. "Why can't you just let this all slide?" Her words really stung, but I was done with all of her favoritism. "They're trampling all over my rules," I shot back. "Mom, this is my home." She just rolled her eyes, dismissing me completely. "It's all for charity," she said, as if that somehow erased all of their betrayal. Carl, our dad, was standing nearby, and he was looking really uncomfortable. "Can't we all just handle this later?" he asked, and his voice was really weak. I shook my head, because I was just way too furious to wait. I stepped back, and my thoughts were just spinning. Tracy's recording had proved that Tiffany's pregnancy was a total sham. It was a calculated move to try and weaken me, and it was likely tied to their plan to try and claim my house for themselves. The extra guests and the sound system were just intentional power grabs, and they were trying to see just how far they could really push me. I checked the cameras again, and I caught Trevor directing some of the staff to move my furniture, which was yet another breach of our agreement. Their arrogance was just infuriating. I found Tracy again, away from all of the chaos. "Thank you for the evidence," I said, and my voice was steady, despite all of the rage that was building up inside of me. "You just need to keep your eyes peeled." She nodded, and her face was grim. "They're really not backing off," she said. The party just roared on, with music pounding and guests completely oblivious to all of the deceit that was unfolding right before them. My home felt like it was a battleground, overrun by people who thought that they could just take it all from me. But I wasn't folding. Justin's fake charm, Tiffany's lies, and Susan's bias, they had all really underestimated me. The cameras were rolling, the contract was ironclad, and I had proof of their deception. The air was thick with tension, but I was really ready for whatever their next play was going to be. This was my home, and I was going to defend it right to the very end. The morning after the party, my security system alerted me. A really loud beep came from my phone, and it showed me a truck pulling into my driveway uninvited. I checked the camera feed, and I saw my older brother Justin stepping out, and Tiffany and Trevor were right behind him. Justin was holding a stack of papers, and his face was all smug. My heart just raced. This was it. This was their move to try and claim my house. I texted Edward, my friend and lawyer, immediately. "They're here with a truck," I typed. "I need you now," he replied instantly. "On my way, just stay calm." I stepped outside, and my stomach was churning, but my resolve was stone cold. Justin strode towards me, waving those papers around. "This house is mine now," he declared, and his voice was loud, almost theatrical. "These documents prove it." I glanced at the papers. They looked official, but Tracy's warning about forged documents was echoing in my head. Tiffany was standing right there by Justin, and her expression was defiant, while Trevor leaned against the truck, with his arms crossed, like he was just waiting for a show to start. "You're trespassing," I said, and my voice was really steady. "The contract that you signed says that you have absolutely no claim to my house." Justin just laughed, a really sharp, mocking sound. "Little sis, you're just way out of your depth," he said. "This is family property now." His words just hit me like a punch, but I didn't even flinch. Tiffany chimed in, and her tone was just dripping with fake concern. "We just want what's fair, Vanessa," she said. Trevor just nodded silently, but he was smirking. Their confidence was making my skin crawl. They actually thought that they had already won. Edward's car just screeched into the driveway, and he stepped out, and his presence was commanding. "What's going on here?" he demanded, eyeing the papers that were in Justin's hand. I quickly explained everything to him: the truck, the fake documents, and Justin's bold claim. Edward's eyes just narrowed. "Those papers are completely worthless," he said, and his voice was cutting. "Vanessa's title to this property is ironclad. You're on her property right now, and you're not welcome here." He pulled out his phone, and he was already dialing. "I'm calling the police to enforce a trespass notice." Justin's smirk faded for a second, but he doubled down. "You can't kick us out of here," he said, stepping closer. "This is my home, too." Tiffany nodded in agreement, and she was really playing the victim now. "You're tearing this family apart," she said, and her eyes were glinting. I really wanted to scream, but Edward's hand on my shoulder kept me grounded. "Don't engage with them," he whispered. "Just let the law handle all of this." The police arrived within just minutes, and 2 officers stepped out of their cruiser. I handed them my property deed and the contract that Justin had signed, and I explained the whole situation to them: the unauthorized truck, the forged papers, and the violation of my rights. Edward backed me up, and his tone was professional but firm. "These individuals are trespassing," he stated, gesturing towards Justin, Tiffany, and Trevor. "They've presented fraudulent documents to claim this property." The officers examined my paperwork, then turned their attention to Justin. "You need to leave," one of them said, his voice calm yet commanding. Justin protested, waving his papers in the air. "This proves it's mine," he shouted. The officer shook his head dismissively. "Those don't hold up," he replied. "You're on private property without permission." Tiffany started to argue, but the second officer interrupted her. "Ma'am, you're risking arrest," he warned sternly. Trevor remained silent, his earlier smugness completely gone. Then Susan arrived in her car, pulling in behind the truck. She rushed towards us, tears streaming down her face. "Vanessa, how could you do this to your brother?" she cried, her voice breaking with emotion. "He's family." Her sobs felt like a calculated trap, designed to guilt me into backing down. "Mom, he's trying to steal my home," I said, my voice firm and unwavering. "I'm protecting what's mine." Susan shook her head sadly, clutching Justin's arm. "You're so selfish," she said, her words trembling with disappointment. "You're breaking us apart." I felt a pang of guilt, but I refused to budge. "This isn't about family," I said resolutely. "It's about right and wrong." Edward nodded in agreement, his expression unwavering. "The police are here for a reason, Susan," he said calmly. "They're breaking the law." The officer stepped in, directing Justin, Tiffany, and Trevor to leave the premises. "You've got 10 minutes?" one of them said, "or we'll escort you out ourselves." Justin glared at me, his face red with anger and resentment. "This isn't over, little sis," he said menacingly, tossing the fake papers onto the ground in disgust. Tiffany grabbed his arm, whispering something in his ear, while Trevor climbed into the truck, avoiding my gaze. Susan stood there, still crying and pleading, but I turned away from her. I'd had enough of her excuses, their lies, and their betrayal. The police stayed until the truck pulled out of my driveway, leaving it empty. Edward turned to me as the officers departed. "You did the right thing," he said, his voice steady and reassuring. I nodded, my heart heavy with sadness, but my resolve remained intact. My house was still mine, but the fight had left deep scars. I wasn't done yet. I'd make sure they couldn't try this again. I decided it was time to end this once and for all. After Justin, Tiffany, and Trevor's outrageous stunt with the truck and those fake papers, I was completely done with their childish games. My home was mine, and I wasn't going to let their lies and deceit go unpunished. With Edward's expert guidance, I took Justin and Tiffany to court, filing a lawsuit against them for forging legal documents and attempting to steal my property through fraudulent means. Edward, as sharp as ever, built a watertight case using the original contract Justin had signed, my property deed, and Tracy's recording of Tiffany openly admitting to her fake pregnancy. The evidence was undeniable and irrefutable, and I was determined to get justice for what they had done. Edward suggested that we make the entire situation public. "They've been banking on your silence and hoping you wouldn't speak up," he said, his voice steady and confident. "Expose them for who they really are." I hesitated at first. Airing out family drama online felt incredibly personal and exposing, but he was absolutely right. Their manipulation and deceit thrived in the shadows, where they could operate without scrutiny. So I posted a detailed account of everything that had happened on social media, sharing the original contract, a complete transcript of Tracy's recording, and even security camera footage showing their violations and disruptive behavior at the party. I made sure to keep it factual and objective, presenting only the hard evidence. There were no embellishments or exaggerations, just the unvarnished truth. Justin and Tiffany had tried to steal my home with lies, deceit, and forged legal papers. The post spread like wildfire, racking up thousands upon thousands of views in just a matter of hours. The fallout was swift and decisive. Family members, distant cousins, and even aunts and uncles I hadn't spoken to in years sent me messages expressing their shock and disbelief. Many of them had been completely taken in by Justin's charm and Tiffany's sob stories. but the overwhelming evidence completely flipped the script. Tracy called me, her voice grim but supportive and encouraging. "They're done," she said confidently. "No one's buying their act anymore." Friends and neighbors back in Knoxville reached out to me, offering their unwavering support and solidarity. Justin and Tiffany's reputations completely crumbled before their eyes. Their charity event, which had once been a shining badge of honor, now looked like nothing more than a thinly veiled scam to fund their elaborate scheme. Social media comments piled up, relentlessly calling them out for their blatant greed and dishonesty. Justin tried desperately to save face, posting a vague and insincere apology online, claiming that it was all just a simple misunderstanding. Tiffany doubled down on her tactics, accusing me of attacking family and creating unnecessary drama, but their words rang hollow against the mountain of hard proof that I had presented. The court date loomed closer and closer, and Edward was absolutely relentless in his preparation, meticulously reviewing every single detail of the case. When the hearing finally arrived, the judge didn't hesitate for a single moment. "This is a clear-cut case of fraud and attempted theft," she said sternly, ruling decisively in my favor. Justin and Tiffany were ordered to pay all of my legal fees and substantial damages, a sum totaling tens of thousands of dollars. They didn't have the money to pay, and their public humiliation only grew more intense and widespread. The family completely split apart. Most of our relatives severed all contact with Justin and Tiffany, completely disgusted and appalled by their reprehensible actions. I heard through Tracy that they had packed up all of their belongings and moved to Arizona, where Tiffany's family lived, probably hoping to find a fresh start and escape the consequences of their actions. I honestly didn't care where they went or what they did. I was completely done with them and their constant lies and manipulation. Justin even sent me a text message before they left, a weak and pathetic attempt at reconciliation. "Little sis, can we talk?" he wrote, hoping to manipulate me one last time. I didn't respond to his message. His betrayal cut far too deep, and I wasn't about to fall for another one of his carefully crafted acts. Susan was a completely different story altogether. She called me, her voice heavy with tears and regret, begging me to forgive Justin and let him back into my life. "He's your brother," she said repeatedly, as if that single fact somehow erased all of the terrible things he had done. Her words cut like a sharp blade, but I had heard enough of her manipulative guilt trips to last a lifetime. "Mom, he tried to steal my home," I said, my tone flat and devoid of emotion. "I'm done with all of this." She cried even harder, accusing me of abandoning my family and creating unnecessary divisions, but I simply hung up the phone. Her complete refusal to see the truth and acknowledge the severity of Justin's actions only solidified my decision. I completely cut off all contact with her. It hurt deeply, but I simply couldn't keep carrying her unfair bias and enabling her destructive behavior. Carl was different from the others. Our dad called me a few times, his voice soft, hesitant, and filled with unspoken concerns. "I just want to check on you and make sure you're okay," he said, carefully avoiding any direct mention of the family drama. I kept our talks short and superficial, mostly about his health or other neutral topics. He hadn't explicitly taken sides in the conflict, but he also hadn't stood up for me or defended me when I needed him most. Maintaining limited contact with him felt like the right approach, enough to keep a fragile thread of connection intact, but not enough to pull me back into the toxic mess that my family had become. The entire ordeal taught me some incredibly hard and painful lessons about life and relationships. Protecting my own boundaries wasn't selfish or unnecessary. It was an essential act of self-preservation. Justin and Tiffany's shocking manipulation and betrayal showed me that some people, even those who are supposed to love and support you, will cross any line imaginable for their own personal gain. Their lies and deceit cost them everything that truly mattered: their reputation, their place in the family, and their foothold in the Knoxville community. I learned to trust my instincts and intuition, to value my own self-worth, and to stand firm in my convictions, no matter who tried to push back or undermine me. My house wasn't just a building made of wood and brick. It was a powerful symbol of everything I had built, everything I had fought for, and everything I had overcome. Edward checked in on me after the dust had finally settled. "You're stronger than they ever gave you credit for," he said, a rare and genuine smile breaking through his usual serious demeanor. I nodded in agreement, feeling a quiet sense of pride and accomplishment. The scars from this brutal fight would undoubtedly remain with me for a long time, but so would the newfound strength and resilience that I had gained. I had successfully protected what was rightfully mine, and I knew in my heart that I would do it again without any hesitation whatsoever.